Two instances tonight of political correctness in this country rising again. The town of Ponchatoula, Louisiana, has been forced to remove a lighted cross display from the town center after the ACLU threatened to sue the small town. And Senator Jim DeMint now says the new Capitol Visitors Center in Washington ignores altogether this country's religious heritage by omitting, amongst other things, references to God, including the Pledge of Allegiance and "In God We Trust." Joining me now is one of the leading Christian conservatives in the country, Tony Perkins. He's president of the Family Research Council, the co-author of the book, Personal Faith and Public Policy. Tony, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Lou. Good to be with you.
Well, I want to turn first, if we may, to Louisiana. As a Louisiana native, you're very familiar with the ACLU's harassment approach with communities celebrating Christmas.
Very much so.
How do you respond to what's happening in Ponchatoula? I mean, that just seems, to me, peculiar.
Well, it's the ghost of Christmases past. I mean, they continually do this. When I was in the legislature down there, I had my own page on their website. Everything I did, they would track and harass. But there's something bigger going on here, Lou. If you look back and look at this region of Louisiana, down in the southern portion, which is a very conservative area, very Catholic, pro-family community, primarily down in that area. Mm-hmm. You've seen the school board sued for having prayer before school board meetings. One of the local courts had a picture of Jesus in the courtroom. They were sued. The reason is because it's the Western District of the Fifth Circuit, and there are a number of very liberal judges down there. This is forum shopping. In fact, one of the judges who was over one of the school prayer cases, Ginger Berrigan, used to head up the ACLU there in Louisiana. So there's a reason behind their badness. They simply harass these local schools and local governments who have very small budgets, and they just harass them till they just kind of capitulate, they surrender and give in to them.
Well, it's a tactic we're seeing used in a number of areas, trying to pursue agendas. And by the way, in every instance, it's a left-wing agenda. I'm an independent populist. I'm not, you know, the conservatism, liberalism, Republican, Democrat. But what we're watching here is a liberal, a left-wing strategy that's being carried on a host of public policy issues.
I mean, Lou, you got to put it again in perspective. I've been through Ponchatoula many times. It's a small rural community. It's a beautiful, picturesque main street where they have antique stores. It's the strawberry capital of the state. And a lot of tourists and visitors come through there. It's just a quaint little town. And this was a part of the display there by the railroad tracks where they've got this cross up. It is a left-wing agenda that is being pursued, but it's being pursued through the courts. And because of the cost of litigating these cases, they're scaring these folks into surrendering what are their rights as American citizens.
There's one aspect of this, and as a fellow who's a product of small towns, if we can call them even that big, the mayor's office told us that the holiday cross, the Christmas cross, will be displayed this year, but instead, because the town is so small, that they'll be able to put it on the Methodist church lawn, and they're going to still have it right in the center of town, just as they would have otherwise. So, you know, it's not all bad. I want to turn.
No, they're creative. They're creative. Believe me, we know how to get things done.
There you go. Let's turn to Washington, D.C. The Capitol Visitor Center has finally opened. Historians got our national motto wrong, saying it was a pluribus unum instead of "In God We Trust." You say this is an example of religious hostility?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, this is an insult to taxpayers that they had to pay 9 times what it was supposed to cost. I mean, over $621 million to be insulted. I mean, if you think about it, Lou, this is it's described as a very sterile environment, 9 times overrun in terms of the cost. I mean, it's a foretaste of things to come in this government. But what is really concerning, if you go into the rotunda, which is a beautiful, beautiful place, and you look around the big pictures that ordain the walls there, you've got 2 prayer meetings, a Bible study, and a baptism right there in the rotunda. You find none of the Christian heritage of this country in this visitor center.
Well, you know, you're talking about religious hostility. There's some just outright hostility, period, there. Apparently, Majority Leader Senator Harry Reid talked about how great it was to have this visitor center so he wouldn't have to smell the tourists coming into, I guess, his Capitol Hill. You know, I mean, well, I don't understand. There's got to be. What are these? Why are we putting up with these fools? I mean, I don't even understand it.
Well, you know, there was a good article in the Washington Post that described the architecture of the Visitor Center and how it really changes the whole makeup of government, which was a building, a beautiful building in this city. Oh, you know, it's an icon across the world. I mean,
sure.
it's a building that people think, when they think of freedom, they think of the American Capitol.
Absolutely.
And now they're kind of being ushered underground to visit that center.
I got to say, it's an outrage. It's an outrage.
But it changes to where this was the house, it was a place where the American people came where they could walk, you know, down the same aisles as their leaders. They could bump into them in the hallways. But now they want to stuff them in the basement. They, like their crazy uncle, they want to keep the public in the basement. They don't want to touch them. They don't want to smell them. They want to keep them away from them. And on top of that, they insult them by rewriting not only our motto, but our history.
Somebody needs to do something about it, I got to tell you. And by the way, e pluribus unum as the motto, I mean, that's fine, except you've got the same group trying to shut that down, too, because they don't want out of many one. They want many
out of one.
And people have just got to wake up to what's happening in this country. Tony
Well,
Perkins,
it's subtle, but it's very important. Thanks,
We thank you for being one of those people doing the awakening. Tony Perkins, the head of the Family Research Council.